Okay, this is a short video on grouting mosaic tile in a bathroom. Now for this project I went with this poly blend from Custom Builders. It was the same company I'd used for the thinset, so I got this for grout. I got 25 pounds. I calculated that I needed about 10 pounds for this 32 square feet, but since this next smallest bag was exactly 10 pounds, I didn't want to run out, so I went with the 25-pound bag. In fact, that was the only bag that had the color that I wanted, which was this almond type color that's called linen here, but I got it at Home Depot. They had it in stock. I went ahead and splurged on an extra $22 for this sealer. It claims it makes the grout stronger. I don't know if that's actually true, but since the grout needs to be sealed, or at least they say it should be sealed after you do it, this apparently eliminates that step. So simply to make that simpler, since it has to be done anyway, I'm not sure how much it would cost if you did it after the fact. Probably less than this $22. This amount covers the entire 25-pound bag, so I only needed less than that. It turns out I ended up using 14 pounds. Okay, significantly more than the 10 pounds. 10 pounds would not have done it. I mixed it in the small bucket. I did it in 2 batches, actually 3 batches, 5 pounds, 5 pounds, and then when that wouldn't cover it, I went with the third batch of 4 pounds. I mixed it by hand with this margin trowel. That actually went pretty well. I followed the instructions on the back of the bag. I certainly watched a lot of YouTube videos, but I calculated the amount of water. I went with this just nominal amount of water. They did not give a range. They just went 2 quarts for 25 pounds. I calculated how much for 5 pounds. I went with that. I followed the 3-minute mix, 5 minutes slake. I remixed it for a minute, didn't say how long. Then I went on, applied the grout. I'll hit pause and I'll show you where the grouting project is right now. Pause. Okay, here's the grouted floor. It's been grouted and wiped. Okay, I couldn't give you any intermediates because it was a 2-person job and he really didn't have any time, or didn't really want to spend time on that now. I got this float at Home Depot, about 10 bucks. I used this for simply pushing the grout in the grout lines, following the rules I had seen, when applying it in at 45 degrees to the surface and also diagonally. But honestly, I did it both ways. It didn't really matter. With the fine mosaic here, didn't really exhibit any problem with the grout pulling out of the lines. I just didn't see it happening. This has a number of problem areas. For example, this under the baseboard. You really can't get under there, but I'm going to be caulking that anyway to seal this off. So it doesn't bother me that the grout really didn't get all the way in there. I didn't really have to lay the tiles all the way in there, but that's just the way it worked out. Up against the bathtub, that's going to be caulked. You're not supposed to put grout in that area, so we tried to get the grout right up to the edge. And I'll fill it with caulk. Okay, there's still one more step to be done, which is removing the haze. The first step is to just push it in and then wipe off as much as feasible. Second step is to take the sponge. I got that at Home Depot for about 3 bucks. In water, and then repeatedly, and then try to wipe it off of the surface, but only to do that after about 20 minutes or 30 minutes after the grout lines have set up firm. And we weren't sure exactly how long that was, but my wife was in charge of that part of the job, the sponging job, and I was in charge of the trowel job. And the way we worked is I started at the far end, then as soon as I got down into the middle, she went down into the far end and started doing the wiping. So we were able to do a 2-person job. With a 1-person job, it would be somewhat logistically difficult with the timing of grouting it. And one issue that we did have was in the overlap region between finishing one. When I finished one and then I went down to mix more material, I wanted to get it back quickly so as to keep kind of a wet edge between the grout. And the first time I did it, I didn't clean the bucket out completely. I didn't clean the bucket out at all. I just added the new grout powder and water and mixed it in. I assumed that whatever residual was in the bucket would not be a problem. It would just mix in with what was there. I don't think that was a good idea because that second batch, even though I mixed it in exactly the same proportion as the first batch, it came out thicker. And I had more problems as I was running towards the end of that batch with the grout being very dry. And it's just harder to push it in. I think it's going to be fine. I'm sure it was harder. I couldn't clean it off so well, and Maureen had more trouble sponging it off. Okay, in retrospect, I would have cleaned the bucket out completely at the end of each time. So on the third time, and that was also one reason why I didn't get as much coverage out of that second one. I was left with I needed probably another 3 pounds, but I mixed up 4 pounds just to be safe. And the last batch was just like the first batch. It was the right consistency, they say, like brick mortar. But the second one was thicker than that. I could tell it was a little bit thicker. But I just went with it, and it did seem a little bit too dry as I was getting to the end of it. But all in all, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's going to be okay. Now, it still needs to have we're still supposed to wait about an hour now, and then do another rinse with water to remove the so-called haze, which is to say there's still some grout on the surface, and the grout lines are not completely dry, so we really can't rub it off completely. So you're supposed to do another step. So there's grout it, clean the grout, and then another clean the haze. And you look online and people will break it up even into multiple cleaning stages, multiple haze removal stages. Sometimes you get residuals that are difficult to get off. But anyway, we'll see how this goes. I'll hit pause, and then basically after we've got the haze removed, I'll show it. But I think it's going to look exactly the same as it is now because you probably have to look real close. You can't really see the haze, but you can kind of feel it. It's got kind of a grit on it. The whole surface is kind of gritty. So I'm going to hit pause. Okay. Okay, after an additional hour, it's time to remove the haze. I don't know if you can really see the haze, but it's hazy. So now I've just got the sponge and the water. I'm just going to wipe it down and change the water for about an hour and see if that does it. Okay, I'll hit pause.